He has not produced a single thing of value in his entire life, and the man is in his 80s. He's a career useless person, but his entire life has been dedicated to wrecking the systems that have granted him fame and fortune. The biggest luxury belief in politics that actually is held by an enormous number of people, there are a few that actually cross the street from touch the grass to the internet, and because people have not felt the ramifications of those beliefs in a long time in the United States, they continue to adhere to those beliefs. The biggest sort of luxury belief held by a huge number of Americans remains socialism. There are a bunch of Americans who are still in love with the idea of socialism because it seems to solve all of their problems, both emotional and financial. The idea is that if you're not doing well in American society, it must be somebody else's fault. There's a giant conspiracy that can only be cured by handing over to a cadre of an unbelievably powerful people in government control over everybody's life. This is always a temptation. I point this out because the right is looking at the left and they're riding high because they're looking at the Democrats and they're saying, you guys are really, really unpopular. There are some problems. There are some problems here. This is why I've been saying, I'm going to keep saying it. If the economy goes south, this country is in serious, serious trouble. Not because we can't survive a recession, we have before and we will again, but because if our economy goes south, there will be a vast turn toward the socialistic left. And here I point to a Gallup poll that came out August 5th. Among 14 prominent U.S. and global figures, the most positive image held by anybody is Pope Leo, which of course not a giant shock. He's a religious figure. And then number 2 is Vladimir Zelensky, who continues to hold a 52% favorable rating and a 34% unfavorable rating. But third on that list is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has a 49% favorable rating, a 38% unfavorable rating, with 14% of Americans saying they have no opinion of Bernie Sanders. And you know who comes in number 5 on the list? Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, 34% favorable, 38% unfavorable, 28% no opinion. That puts her at -4. That means that her approval ratings are better by the spread than J.D. Vance, who comes in at 38% positive, 49% negative. Comes in hotter than Donald Trump, 41% positive, 57% negative. Marco Rubio, 31% positive, 47% negative. And Elon, who has the worst of any of the public figures, 33% positive, 61% negative. And this is a problem because Bernie Sanders has stood outside the two-party system shouting socialist nostrums his entire career. He is a career useless person, a leech on the ass of American society. And yet he is somehow seen as a widely admired figure in America. And this bodes ill. It bodes very, very ill. So one of the reasons that Bernie Sanders remains popular is because he stands outside the two-party system, getting nothing done but shouting extremely simple bumper slogans. And I think that is the thing that people are attracted to in Bernie, is that Bernie is a purist. He never actually has to come down to earth to make policy. Instead, he just stands there saying that rich people are rich not because they provide a good service or product to anybody who wants it, but because they are greedy. That the reason that some are succeeding and others are failing is because the system is rigged against you and the parties themselves are rigged against you. And this is a very convenient stance for somebody in electoral office to take because it means nothing is ever his fault. He's not had to change a single thing in American public life. He just gets to stand there shouting at the system. Well, the problem right now for the country is that if the system then fails in some way, people tend to turn to the guy who is shouting at the system from the outside. When I've talked about the Zoran Mamdanification of the Democratic Party, understand that is not Zoran Mamdani's shtick. Okay, Zoran Mamdani is second gen. He is just Bernie 2.0, but more ethnically diverse. The same thing is true of AOC. Bernie is the kingmaker in this space. And he continues to ride very high, which is why the economy best not fall down. So over the course of the past couple of days, he's doing a lot of TV. And he suggests, for example, that the real problem, the reason that Kamala Harris lost is because she was influenced by wealthy people.
You'd said something pretty tough when you were speaking to this crowd about Kamala Harris.
One of the reasons, in my view, that Kamala Harris lost this election is she had too many billionaires telling her not to speak up for the working class of this country.
Ouch.
Well, no, I don't think that's, I like Kamala, she's a friend of mine, but her core consultants, were heavily influenced by very wealthy people. How do you run for president and not develop a strong agenda which speaks to the economic crises facing working families.
Again, so convenient for him. So convenient for him. He wasn't the nominee. And Kamala Harris, I mean, again, I think Kamala's awful. But the reason she didn't go full socialist is because she would have lost by more if she had gone full socialist. But Bernie can sit there and say that the reason that she didn't is because the billionaires bullied her into it or something. And then, of course, he says the government is run by extremely greedy people.
Do you think that in America, with all of our genius, all of our capabilities, we spending so much money cannot provide a high-quality system that guarantees health care to all people? And do you think people here don't know that? They know it. They know we can do it. Throughout Europe and other countries, you don't have to leave college $50,000, $100,000 in debt or $500,000 in debt if you're going to medical school. That makes zero sense at all. Look, let's be clear, and the message of tonight and what I will continue to give. You have a government today that is run by the wealthiest people in this country. They are extremely greedy people. They want it all, and we've got to stand up to them.
Okay, so again, this shtick, it's ridiculous on its face. The fact is that the government sucks money out of the pockets of Americans at an exorbitant rate, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars every single year. He says that he wants to live like a person in Italy. Well, he can start by getting rid of his air conditioning in his lake house. Right? That's where he can start. It won't end there, by the way. He can also give up civil liberties, First Amendment rights, and all the rest. Get to more on this in just a moment. First, who knows you better than yourself, your family, your friends? Well, if you own any internet-connected device, well, there are thousands of companies that might know you better than you know yourself. They're called data brokers. They make billions tracking everything you do online, every purchase, every location, every conversation, your most personal beliefs, all packaged into a profile they sell to marketers, activists, and yes, politicians looking to influence you. You could go completely off the grid, or you could just use ExpressVPN. These companies track you through your IP address, your digital fingerprint. ExpressVPN gives you a new IP address in a location you choose, making you virtually untraceable. With ExpressVPN, your connection is encrypted and routed through secure servers. Even your internet provider can't see your activity, which is important since they're legally allowed to sell your data to whomever they want. I've been using ExpressVPN for years, particularly when I'm on public Wi-Fi. Well, I need ExpressVPN to make sure that others don't have access to my private information. ExpressVPN works on all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, with just one click for instant privacy. Find out how you can get 4 months for free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by heading on over to expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. But what is the thing that undergirds the Bernie movement? What undergirds the Bernie movement is a seething hatred of the United States, a seething hatred of the West, a belief that the West is somehow morally inferior to other parts of the world. This is why I've said for a while, people on the right who say, how could Zohran Mamdani win despite being radically anti-Semitic? The answer is he won because he's radically anti-Semitic. That is the reason. The left-wing base of the Democratic Party is totally happy to do the third world thing. It is their favorite thing. Bernie Sanders is the kind of person, again, he remains extremely popular with Americans, broadly speaking, because he represents a sort of fantasy version of politics where you snap your fingers and magically everybody has a third car and it's a Ferrari. But he also suggests a system wherein the reason some people win and some people lose is not because some people make better decisions than others. It is because there is some sort of overarching conspiratorial system designed to harm other people. I have a new book coming out called Lions and Scavengers. He is a pure example of a scavenger. He has not produced a single thing of value in his entire life, and the man is in his 80s. He's a career useless person, but his entire life has been dedicated to wrecking the systems that have granted him fame and fortune. He's the kind of person who believes that Hamas, the terrorist group that has been stealing something like 90% of all trucks the UN ships in, have been hijacked. The food has been stolen. Hamas has been stealing an awful lot of that. They've been shooting people in the streets. But Bernie says, for example, that Hamas, there's no problem with Hamas. Hamas has no responsibility for any of the lack of food in the Gaza Strip.
Would you say Hamas has some culpability in people starving?
No.
Why? When they spent so much money building tunnels and everything under the
right now, what is going on is a slaughter. All right. And right now, Israel is, with few exceptions, is in control of the military situation. It is not Hamas's. Hamas is a terrible terrorist organization. All right. Mm-hmm. And I certainly hope they have no future in a new Gaza or Palestine. But the fault right now is 100% on a Netanyahu government who has waged an all-out war, committed it's war crimes. They are war crimes.
Okay, this despicable human being somehow has a plus 11% approval rating with the American people. And the reason that he is saying those things is because the left of the Democratic Party likes to believe that Western powers are responsible for all ills. Western civilization is responsible for all ills. This is the key luxury belief. When we talk about luxury beliefs, this sort of fancy luxury belief has to do with climate change. But the luxury belief is sitting in the West, the beneficiary of hundreds of years of development, particularly in the name of free markets, to sit there and talk about how free markets are the problem, how the West is the problem, and how terrorist groups bear no responsibility for their purposeful starvation of their own citizenry. That is a luxury belief, and it's a luxury belief a lot of Americans hold. It's a luxury belief because, again, the people who actually have to live under regimes like the ones that Bernie Sanders is soft on, like Hamas, or in Cuba, or in Venezuela, it turns out they don't like it very much. There's a reason why the United States is still the number one destination for people who are seeking to get to a better place on planet Earth. But these luxury beliefs have consequences. Zohran Mamdani is currently leading that New York City mayoral race by 20 points in a 5-person field. The split continues in the field, by the way. Right now, he has 44% of the vote. Andrew Cuomo has about 25% of the vote. Curtis Sliwa has 12% of the vote. And Eric Adams has 7% of the vote. Now, the problem is that if you add together Cuomo, Sliwa, and Adams, you still end up with about a tie with Mamdani. So it looks like Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York, and good luck to all of you. Truthfully, good luck to all of you in New York. I hope that you enjoy the ride because you are absolutely buying the ticket, and you deserve what you get if you continue to subsidize a city that wants to vote for somebody like a Zohran Mamdani. And by the way, the hypocrisy continues to be astonishing. Zohran Mamdani is a trust fund baby. He's literally living in a rent-controlled apartment. He is taking a rent-controlled apartment away from somebody who presumably would need the rent control. Here's Andrew Cuomo, who again is no great shakes, but is correct for calling out Mamdani on this.
Rent-stabilized units, when they're vacant, should only be rented to people who need affordable housing, not people like Zohran Mamdani. You don't need to be renting rent-stabilized units to wealthy people. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're abusing the system. I'm going to propose not rent that apartment by law, except to a person who actually needs affordable housing. And I'm going to call it Zohran's Law because it's an abuse of the system.
Okay, well, he's right about that, but does that matter to the socialists in New York City, who, again, live on the back of generations of American growth? Of course not. They're going to rip on Wall Street while Wall Street really built gigantic sections of New York City. Now, I was rewatching the movie Gangs of New York recently, which is, a fun movie. It's very dark, obviously. Great performance by Daniel Day-Lewis. But the premise of the movie is that gang warfare in New York built the city of New York. No, it absolutely did not. You know what built the city of New York? Gigantic commerce and investment is what built the city of New York. So you want to shut that down? Good luck to all of you. But this is why I am deeply concerned about the state of the American economy. Because if the economy goes south, then schmucks like Bernie Sanders, who sit outside, or Zohran Mamdani, who sit outside, sit on top of the wonderful things that capitalism has wrought, and then rip on capitalism and the system and talk about how the West and America are evil. Those are the people who are going to be the beneficiary of any sort of serious economic downturn. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.